Hello there, my beautiful friends. I am so happy to be back here with you, and I hope you're doing well. As you know, if you've been following along, we have been talking about sovereignty. It's my word of the year. And in honor of that word of the year, I did a deep dive into what does sovereignty mean to me? What does it mean to know about it? But what is it? What is it? And how well am I in relationship with my own sovereignty? How aware am I of my sovereignty? If you haven't listened to the previous 4 episodes, I recommend that you binge, go back and start at the beginning because we're kind of taking this step by step of when I did the research and started understanding myself actually better. Uh, I broke it down into some parts. And I will say that I went through different periods of my life, many of them. Um, and in those periods of my life, I felt like I was losing myself. I felt like I just got lost. Have you ever done that where you just sort of look around and wonder, like, how'd I get here? Well, if you're fortunate enough to answer no, I don't know what that's like, either you are sound asleep or you're living a very, very blessed life. There's a lot of us that were sound asleep. A lot of people go through their whole life never really asking themselves hard questions, never really digging deeper into the why, the what, the how. And yes, that can be markers for insanity. It can make us go to places we don't want to go. But when you do it in the context of truth, am I living my truth? And you ask that not in the relative truth, which is where a lot of our judgment and stories and experiences are born from, is the human experience, which gives us a relative truth. But it's not the absolute truth. For example, in one of my trainings, I asked the question, who am I? Who are you? Tell me who you are. Most people will start telling me things about them, roles they're in, identities they carry, accomplishments that they've made. And it's not necessarily true about who they are. It's just what they're doing. The who of who they are is here doing things in this human experience. If that sentence confused you, I'm sorry, and you might go back and listen to it again. But the who of who you are is having human experiences, but it doesn't define who you are. Some call it a soul and some call it our spirit. Those are two different things, in case you wondered. Our soul comes in and lives in our body, in our subconscious, the subconscious part of our mind. In other words, we're not fully conscious of it, but I will tell you that everything that you experience in life is born out of our subconscious. It's born out of our soul's purpose. It's guiding us. It's holding all our ancestral information. It's holding all of our childhood and adulthood wounds and traumas. It's holding all the information and beliefs that you have created in this lifetime. And the beliefs become thoughts that become emotions. And they actually attract things into our existence that form our relative truth. Relative truth means that it's just what we're experiencing on a human level. But from a spiritual perspective, that's when we go to greater universal truths. There is an absolute truth that exists. And what I love about this whole journey that I am on as I explored my sovereignty is the exploration into the spiritual psychology, which you've heard me talk about, that I just love because we're looking at our sovereignty. We're looking at things like higher consciousness. What is that as it relates to the creator, the one, the source, God, whatever you call it. For me, it's God. And if we believe, and scripture does tell us and confirms that, God lives within us, that he created us and he lives within us. He's omnipotent, he's everywhere. God is in all living beings. And if that's so, then is that the place that I meet my sovereignty, which is living truth? At least that's the way I am understanding it. And it's important for me to say that because we're almost halfway through these series of talks on sovereignty, and I want to get us all on the same page. So we started with just talking about it and how I came to know of that word sparking my curiosity and not just flipping off the first answer, which is, of course, my sovereignty is it's all good. It's all good. Doing well. And then thought later, like, I don't even know what the heck my sovereignty is right now. So how did I know I'm doing well? That was our first episode. Second one was about busyness and how when we get super busy, we don't have time to think these deep thoughts. Sometimes people just find these deep conversations so annoying. It's so much better to just live life on the surface. If you're here and you follow this podcast, you probably aren't one of them because I'm the opposite. I live life on the surface and I live life as deeply as I can. Um, I jump in with both feet, whatever shows up. And it's given me many interesting experiences to weave into my tapestry of life. So we talked about how we get busy so we don't have to think about such things. But then we talked about what happens if we stop being busy and we just allow ourselves to rest. Oh, and before that, we talked about urgency. So our busyness also was creating urgency. And so there was always something more important to do than to sit and contemplate things such as sovereignty, for me at least. So I invited you to look at how do you use busyness to occupy yourself, to avoid? What are you avoiding? And are you even aware you do it? Then, what's your relationship to urgency? How and when do things become urgent? Do you create them? Do you create distractions through urgency? Because I did. If I have a deadline, man, I'm on it. And I just created so many deadlines every single day that I had an excuse not to feel what was happening underneath the surface of my life. So then I had to rest. It took breaking my heel into 100 pieces, having 4 months of bed rest while it healed, and some pretty heavy drugs to knock me off my knees, and I literally had to be still. And in that 4 months of being still, I grew to know God in a whole new way. They say, be still and know that I am, that I am. And I got to know God in a up close, personal, intimate way because I had nothing else and sometimes no one else to really talk to who was listening. But underneath that stillness bubbled up truths. And some of those truths weren't pretty. Some of those truths were uncomfortable. Some of those truths were things that I could hear myself saying. And I don't even know that it was my voice. I didn't know where it even came from. You're not good enough. What are you doing? Why are you always this? Why do you never that? And I had to listen and say, what is that? Who's talking in my quiet stillness? I have a lot of clients who will tell me that meditation doesn't work for them because they can't sit still, that when it gets quiet, it's not comfortable for them. So they think that meditation isn't for them. And I say it's most designed just for you for that reason. We're not meant to burn the candle at both ends. We're not meant to burn our nervous systems out, trying to do too much to be enough. We pride ourselves on our to-do lists, especially the ones that have marks through them at the end of the day. But what about our be still and know list? What do we learn in the stillness? And that was our last episode. Get comfortable being uncomfortable with what bubbles up in that quiet space. And this episode, episode 5, is don't go back to sleep. You've seen the truth. Now comes the moment of choice. Let's take a deep breath together before we dive into this such a juicy segment today. I'm so happy you're here with me. I can't even tell you how much gratitude I have and appreciation I have that there are people out there that want to hear me ramble and share my deep thoughts. And you know, if you're one of them, then congratulations, you're not a sleepwalker. That's what I call the people who just glide through life asleep. They never wake up to the richness, the depth, the heights, the power, the creativity, the beauty they create. Just there's so much. This life of ours is such a gift. It is such a gift. It's such a beautiful gift. Every part of it, every aspect of it, the hard, the ugly, the messy, the glorious, the miraculous. It's all perfectly divinely guided. And when you really get that and trust that, you're not sleepwalkers. You're not just taking what it dishes out and moving on. So let's just take a big, deep breath. As you know from the last episodes, and if you're just jumping in on episode 5, it's okay. This one can stand alone. You don't have to go back. But we've been doing a little bit of breath work, very basic. And it literally is breathing in to the count of 4 and making it as deep and slow a breath as you can take in. And I literally sit up straight, like I'm pulling the breath right up my spinal column and out through the top of my head to the count of 4. And then I hold it at the top for just a moment and then exhale to the count of 8. Again to the count of 4. Holding it at the top. Exhale. When we do that, do you feel it? Do you feel the calm that comes at the end of that? Do you feel your body relaxing? It's an amazing thing to do. Several times a day, I stop and do 3 consecutive deep breaths just to reset my nervous system. And as we go on our journey into our own, threshold of sovereignty in the inner world, doing that breath work first sets the tone, it sets the stage, it lights the way for us. So always, always try to practice that. So in this spiritual journey that we're on, there's a moment when you're on an awakening journey. There will be this moment, and it's a moment where everything changes. Everything. It's like you wake up and you look around and you have the awareness that I'm here and everything is, I've landed in some other place called Oz. I don't know. And it's, it's perspective changes. And so everything I see through the lens of my physical eyes looks different. Sometimes the colors are more vibrant. Sometimes I notice the little things that I would have never noticed before. So there is this moment on an awakening journey where you awaken and you look around and you become aware of your patterns. You become aware of how you got there. And then it's not that first realization, and it's not the breakdown that happened, and it's not even that awareness itself, but it's that moment right afterwards when you realize, oh, I see it now, and I can't unsee it. And yet part of you wants to turn around and run back. When I start working with someone and they are wanting to work on their spiritual path, I put a forewarning on on our work together, because once you step foot on that path of awakening, it's pretty hard. The further you go down that path, the harder it is to turn around and go back. Yet you're going to want to. I remember a time where I was like, heck no, this is getting way too much. This is way too hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And I literally felt myself turning around and running back, almost like I was running on a balance beam on a little narrow pathway. And I got to the threshold of the door that let me go back, where I could go to sleep and forget all this awareness. And the door was locked. And I heard a voice say, "You can't go back. You chose this path. Stay on it, but you can't go back." And I knew the cost of that. I knew I would never choose to willingly go back to sleep, because once you wake up, you know too much. You know too much to go back to sleep. You've seen the truth, and you know that you have the power to choose between relative truth, living on the surface of the human experience, and spiritual truth, which is living into the possibilities of who you are and what you're here to do. It's your moment of choice. We always have the choice. I could sit down on that balance beam and lean against the door and go back to sleep, even if I couldn't walk through it. But in that moment of choice, well, that's where sovereignty is born. So there comes a moment in your life, if it hasn't happened yet, get ready, because you're here listening, and that means probably there's one in your future. But there's a moment when something shifts and you just No. You quit running, you turn around and you say, okay, truth, what truth is chasing me down right now that I am choosing to ignore? You turn around, you look it in the eye. Maybe it's a fear that you have, and maybe it's the truth about who you are. Either way, you begin to see your life differently. You begin to see patterns. And when you recognize patterns, you see your reactions to those patterns. And then you see the habits built around those patterns. Patterns are easily identified when you fill in the blank of this sentence. I always do that. I always fill in the blank. I never fill in the blank. And you begin to recognize where you've been. For some of us, where we've been our whole life up until that moment. We might spend a whole lifetime of over giving, over explaining yourself, actually silencing yourself, not using your voice, not speaking your truth, abandoning your truth just to keep the peace. And here's what matters. According to universal law, what you bring into your consciousness is what you begin to transform. Our awareness that follows the awakening, when we look around, when we really look at and understand our patterns, well, we've brought them into consciousness. They're no longer a blind spot. Awareness is so powerful, you all. We have to take the time to get underneath all the noise of life, of this outer world, all the demands, all the urgencies, all the busyness, all the news, all the injustice of the world, all the social injustice that we see, all of it. We have to get underneath it and listen. What else is going on? What are your patterns? And when I say patterns, they're first thoughts. They're thought patterns. And those thought patterns come from a belief. And the belief is born from an identity that you have taken on. So I want you to follow that with me. This is like a thread weaving the tapestry of your life on autopilot. Okay. So, for example, think of an example. All my life, I dreamt of the day I would be a mom. I couldn't wait till I could babysit. I was 12 when my niece was born, and I got to babysit her for free, for the privilege of just getting to take care of an infant child and then a little 6-month-old and on and on. And then I started babysitting for my best friend's older sister's children, and I just adored them. And I was so a part of their family and understood how to take care of those children that they trusted me with them for a weekend at a time. And I got to keep house. I just thought that was the greatest thing in the whole world because I got to cook dinner and got to do the dishes, and I got to play with the kids and create activities and give them naps and feed them and bathe them and put them in bed and tuck them in and feel the joy of what it's like to have the house peaceful and quiet again and spend the night and get up and do it again the next day. So much so that I couldn't wait to get married and couldn't wait to start having a family of my own. And I did. As you might have heard in early episodes, I ended up with 5 children who are all grown now. And I still loved it. Y'all, I loved being a mom. It's the hardest and still is hands down the hardest job I still have. But it taught me, it stretched me, it grew. I expanded in my understanding of life. But I went through many of those early years parenting from the joy of parenting and not taking the time to listen to the still small voice underneath all the noise of my busy life. Awareness came later. Ernest Holmes says that the moment you become aware, you become free. But awareness is, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. There's a whole series of things that follows awareness. For one, we might be aware of things, of patterns that maybe they infuriate us. Maybe we see a pattern of tolerance with something or someone, and you see how you've been played, or you see how you've been people pleasing to the point that you've lost yourself, or you have been codependently involved in a way that wasn't honoring your truth, your sovereignty. We see patterns and we may not like seeing them, but it's just the beginning. And it's important to learn as you begin to pull the curtain back and see what's behind it, that you're careful not to pass judgment. So often I get people to the awareness part and a lot of judgment comes up, and we have to stop and be aware of the pattern of judgment. And after we get through the pattern of judgment, we have to figure out, well, what do we do with that energy? What do we do with that feeling of judgment toward ourselves, toward another, toward life, toward the government, toward anything we have a strong opinion about? We're in judgment. And when you're in judgment, there's usually no healing for you, for them. We don't really help people when we judge. And so what comes next is called acceptance, because you cannot change your life. You cannot experience transformation without the universal law of neutrality. Neutrality is what comes from acceptance. That doesn't mean that you accept bad behavior or a social injustice. You don't have to accept it to practice acceptance. Acceptance means I can still say that I disagree with that and I can still advocate for something I believe in. But right now, this is what is happening. I have to accept it as reality. This is the truth of what is happening as I know it. Anything that you know is true from an outside source, meaning social media, meaning the evening news, meaning a newspaper article, meaning a Google search, all of those, they might be true, but they're relative truth. And some might not even be true in the relative truth world. In the world of AI, where photos and voices are so easily replicated, how do you know what is true? And if sovereignty is connected to our truth, then what are we doing? How would we ever know our sovereignty if we can't trust that what we see is true? And so when I talk about relative truth, that is the relative truth that is born from any source outside of yourself. Absolute truth is an inside knowing. Absolute truth comes from your Creator. How long do you spend each day checking in about what is true? What truth do I need to know and live by today. Guide me, teach me, show me. It's an inside job. No external stimulation. And it changes your perspective, and it's powerful. So, yes, your awareness is just the beginning. So, I'd like you to think now about some moment that you can remember where there was a before and an after. Before that happened and after that happened, your life looked totally different. It might be a relationship dynamic. It might be a pattern that you could no longer ignore. It might be a truth that smacked you in the face and you couldn't avoid it anymore. Think about that. Let it be honest with you. Let it be human. But sit with that. And maybe as you're listening, you can feel, where is truth in you? Where does this truth live from within? Where are you on your journey? Was there a time that you awakened but then went back to sleep? What have you already seen that you now are aware of that you can't unsee? And what truth are you no longer willing to turn a blind eye toward? Because once you see, you don't really ever get to unknow it unless you go back to sleep. And believe me, many people do. Many people find comfort in letting it all fade back into our subconscious. It it takes a long time to create the new habit of living your truth. It takes a lot of work, right? This is where it all gets real, because we always have a choice. And the way we fall back to sleep is that we stop doing our due diligence to stay awake. And I mean consciously awake. I hope everybody knows when I say don't go back to sleep, I don't mean literally. It's the awareness. It's living with our eyes open, seeing things as they are, not as we hope they are. And then accepting this is what's happening. I've shared vulnerably, openly, and with permission the stories of my children who are adults. I still call them my children, but they're all adults. My one son who struggles with addiction in his mental health and spiritual journey. And I saw the signs that he was in trouble long before I acknowledged the signs. Why? Because there was too many other fires to put out. And I just couldn't face the truth that he had gotten into a crowd of good kids, but doing experimental things that they could walk away from, but he could not. And once I saw it, once I looked in his eyes and saw a vacancy that you understand if you've ever experienced someone who's using drugs, there's a vacancy, there's a soullessness. And I cannot go back to sleep. And I became a very fierce advocate for him. I wasn't going to abandon him, but I wasn't going to deny that we had a problem, and addiction is a family problem. So it got real. And after that awareness was a lot of discomfort for me. So do you see the gap between waking up opening your eyes and looking around and seeing your patterns and having to say, wow, this is really uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable when I had to learn to speak my truth, no matter what. I was so uncomfortable when I had to even use my voice. It's part of why I do this podcast, because I am determined to not let my pattern cause me to go back to sleep and say, I am not going to use my voice for good in this world. And my prayer, my commitment is that the person that's on the other side of this podcast is destined to have heard something that I have shared that blesses them, that opens them, that helps them move along their spiritual path. That brings me joy. That brings meaning to the pattern of being silent most of my life. Is it comfortable? Eh, sometimes this is nerve-wracking for me. Is it comfortable to feel my vulnerability? Is it comfortable to tell people in a public forum like this about the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life? There's discomfort in that. But there's a gap between who I was that experienced all of that and who I'm becoming by standing in the truth of that with acceptance. And sometimes that gap that I stand in, it can feel unbearable. But what is a girl to do? You can't unhear the bell. It's ringing, the bell is ringing. It's calling me forward. And there's voices talking that are calling me back. Just go back to your old ways. Just go back to the old version of yourself. Just go back to sleep. Let's just go back to the pattern of not doing all this stuff that you do. Can't we just go back? And it's so tempting, you all. It's so tempting to go back to sleep, to numb it out. If you've journeyed with me in this podcast, and if you haven't, I'll just tell you, I've shared so much with you about my childhood and my codependency and my loss of my first marriage and being a single mom and then getting remarried and adding to our family and my brother's suicide. My children became a masterclass, each one in their own way. Estrangement with two of them. My front door stays open and unlocked for the day that either of them wants to walk back into our lives. But I had to learn to be okay until then. Awakened to how I created that? Yes. Aware of that pattern? Yes. Sitting in the effect of that as the cause of it? Yes. The gap is not comfortable at all, but I won't go back. I'll keep going forward. I'll keep growing. I'll keep learning. I'll keep becoming enlightened. I'll keep humbled. I won't go back because I can't. I just not made. It's not in me to retreat in that way. It's in me to retreat because if you know me, you also know that's my passion is transformational retreats where all of this comes full circle. But for now, I'm not going to go back. I'm going to continue to grow, heal, transform, become, remember who I am. And our system is designed to. Our mind, our body, our emotions, they're all calibrated to a frequency. It's the law of vibration. Okay, that's where that law comes in. Everything in life has a frequency. Everything is energy. It's this desk I'm sitting at. It's the frequency going in of my voice. My voice carries a frequency. It might be like nails on a chalkboard to you, and to others, it could be soothing, but it's carrying a frequency. Our thoughts, they have a frequency. Our beliefs, they too have a frequency. Emotional patterns, oh, they have a frequency. So here's another truth. You can hold on to this while standing in the gap. You don't experience life based on what you want. You experience life based on what you are in vibrational agreement with, alignment. And so if I have an identity and a belief system and thoughts and emotions and feelings of scarcity, that there's never going to be enough, guess what I'm in alignment with? I'm vibrationally a match for experiences of lack, of not enough. But we're not destined to that for our whole life. We're not left to let that be all there is. I don't know what your belief is or what your faith is, and I'm not here to tell you what it needs to be. But what I can tell you is that I believe in a very loving and benevolent God who loves me enough to let me fall, let me fail, let me experience hardship, and offers me a way of understanding that I have a choice. Because you guys, what I believe is we were created different than the oak tree or the squirrel or, we're human. And as a human being, we were given free will. It's one of the most powerful gifts we've been gifted in our whole lifetime. And sadly, going back to sleep sometime is giving up our free will. It's not knowing we have one. It's not knowing that a free will means we have choice. We have a choice to align vibrationally to lack or to abundance, to health or to illness, to empowerment or victimhood. We pick every single moment, 24/7. Our brain goes, parts of our brain goes to sleep and resets when we sleep at night, but our subconscious is always creating. And it's creating from thoughts that came from beliefs, that came from identity. And maybe you need an identity shift out of victimhood. Because in my world, no one's a victim here. We have to take responsibility for the choices. And if we're just living on the surface of life and looking at relative truth, we'll never see it. We'll never see the magic of it, right? So we want to know, how do we create an identity for ourselves that aligns with what we want to experience? Inherently, we believe life is good or life is not. We believe that life is easy or life is hard. We believe that in lack and abundance, in famine and excess, we're in the law of polarity in this world. We are going to experience the opposite all the time. It's how we create. It's how the world expands and grows and heals. It's where transformation happens. It's through polarity. Isn't that wild? If this is over your head, I'm sorry, but I hope it isn't, because it's the most rich conversation that we could ever have. I invite you into this conversation. As a matter of fact, we're going to be creating an opportunity for discussion around some of these topics, and some small groups that my team is putting together. I'd love to hear if you'll be interested in that. So Thomas Troward said, "You must rise in consciousness to the level of the thing that you seek." Okay, you have to rise in consciousness, meaning if your limiting belief says, I want I want to manifest $10,000 by Wednesday, but your subconscious has a limiting belief that says, no way, is that ever going to happen? The limiting belief is in the lower vibration, and you'll be right. I call it shifting gears to raise up in your consciousness. Rise up. That breath we do at the beginning, we're rising into a higher level of consciousness through our breath. And it's a place that tells you the truth that you are a powerful creator, that you have resource, that the world is abundant, that what you seek is seeking you. But we have to live from that. And what we do is live from our limiting beliefs that go on autopilot and aren't even in our consciousness because they're so habitual. My big one is I'm not good enough. I seek perfection in everything I do because everything I do is never good enough. And guess what? For a long time, that became the energy with my children. Whatever their homework was, it wasn't good enough. Even though I celebrated whatever they did, there was an energy saying it could have been better. I could have been better. I wasn't good enough. And then I would feel shame. And they would feel like they imposed shame on me by creating that feeling in me, which isn't totally unfair to do to kids. If only they knew that I knew now what I didn't know then because I woke up. I woke up and saw all the parenting patterns that I wasn't aware of long after I was done parenting. Not that I'm not still a mom, but my parenting job is over. But I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I'm not worthy. Other things could say, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be the troublemaker. It's safer to stay small. It's safer to stay silent. If you have any of those patterns running your life, you will return to them. After you wake up, you will return. It's okay because this is practice. As long as you are awake and watch yourself return and correct course. And we don't return because something in us is flawed or broken. It's actually designed perfectly, if there is such a thing as perfection. God found it. But you're going to go to what frequency is comfortable. You're going to go to what you already know works for you. And you have to pull yourself out there. You have to put yourself in uncomfortable places. Everything you want is outside that comfort zone. I mean, there was a time when I knew better, but I went back. But as soon as I went back, I could feel it. I could smell it. I could sense it. I could spot it. And I'm like in the pattern again. Different arena. You know, what do they say? Same song, different verse. I I still fall back into old patterns of playing small. And I decide that the next day, one bold action is going to be to not play small, to do something I didn't think I could do. So, what was a time when you knew better and maybe you went back to an old pattern or an old habit? And what did it feel like? Did you feel defeated? Did you feel shame? And what were you afraid of in that space? And what did it cost you? A friend that finally quit smoking cigarettes. Took her forever. And she finally gave it up. And life got hard. And she found herself craving a cigarette. And she smoked one. She bought a pack and said, I'm just going to smoke one. And I won't do it anymore. And before she knew it, it cost her all that work she did the first time. She had to start over. So let's remove the judgment or the shame from this because shame will actually put you back to sleep faster than anything. And you have to recognize that when you go back or you fall back into an old pattern, your awareness is still deepening because now you're watching yourself do it. You're not blind to it. So it's not a failure. Staying awake is not always comfortable. Once you see your patterns, you hear those voices in your head telling you who they think you are, that you're not good enough, that you're an imposter, that you're a fraud, a fake, that you're a know-it-all, that you're, mean, that you're a bully, that you're, you know, a people pleaser, a Pollyanna. We have so many labels that we can slap on, fill in the blank, right? But here's something I want you to see today is that you can't blame something outside of you for a belief that you have inside of you creating the experience. You can no longer, once you wake up, pretend that you don't know. That means you can't outsource your power. And when you give that up, you give up victimhood. And you know what comes up after that? Grief. We grieve the day that we could just sit back and be a victim of all these things that happen to us every day. I can't believe it. That bad driver cut me off. I ran off the road and got a flat tire. A version of you could have gotten stuck in that. There's things that feel like injustice, big things, not just flat tires, big things in life. And you'll grieve for the person you were once that didn't know that there was something you could do differently. There's grief for the person you were when you tolerated more. There's grief for the life that you lived before you woke up. Max Dupree said it pretty succinctly. It's, we cannot become what we want by remaining what we are. So something has to shift. And it's not just your thoughts, it's your entire identity. So have you ever come up upon a time in your life where you're just so sick and tired of it, that you're sick and tired of it and something's got to give? And you say, I can't keep being this version of me and expect my life to look different. I have to make some changes. And maybe right now you're in that space where you're not who you used to be, but you have no idea who you're becoming. One of my clients and I laugh all the time because we find ourselves there. We call it the middle. We're in the middle. We're not there yet, but we can't go back. We're in the middle. And you know what I call it? I call it sacred. I call it holy ground that you're standing in, because that is the moment of choice. That is where you get to exercise free will. It's that moment, a quiet, sacred moment where you say, now that I see, what will I choose? Not what's easy, not what's familiar, but what's true. That choice is the creative center of your entire life. Ernest Holmes teaches that. The choice you make in that moment is the creative center of your entire life. Whatever you create from the middle is what you create. I want to walk you through something. So let's just take a breath. And I want you to think about one area of your life where you have awakened, where you have become aware of an unhealthy pattern. Maybe you know the thought, maybe you just know the behavior. And now ask yourself, what have I become aware of? What is the old pattern? What truth do I see now? And what would choosing differently look like within that pattern? And what is the cost if I don't? Let this moment that you explore, you're in the middle, in the holy ground, the holy, beautiful, sacred territory of creating. Let that moment be honest. Let it be real. Because you guys, this is your life. I wish that there was some way I could impart as I ramble on in this episode of what a soapbox I have gotten on today. We're going to go over my hour. I hope you can hang with me. We're almost there though. Um, but you all, it's so powerful to get this. I feel like I learned this. I I experienced it myself over and over, and I feel like I've been given this holy grail of spiritual water to cleanse my soul, to release these limiting beliefs, to step more fully into who I am, which is the greatest privilege we have as a human being. In that moment, choosing differently might cost you something, but not choosing, it costs you your sovereignty. That's how I got to know my sovereignty, is how I bargained it away using external resources to give my power away, to go dark, go silent, hide. Don't speak up. Be a coward. Oh my goodness, so many times I was afraid to speak the truth because of fear of abandonment. And guess what I manifested? Abandonment when I spoke my truth. So here's the truth. You can go back to sleep. People do it every day. But once you have awakened, going back feels heavier because now you know, and this is your sovereignty. It's not perfection, but a willingness to stay awake, to stay honest, to stay aligned to what you know internally, aligned to the inner knowing, not anything happening outside of you. Shut your eyes and go inward and find that truth. Listen. To hear the still small voice, you have to silence yourself. You have to still your body. You have to get past urgency and busyness. You have to let your nervous system settle down because it's loud. It's loud right now for everybody, and it is wearing us out. Our nervous system is on high alert just because of what's happening in the world. But you get to go inward. You get to go in and quiet the nervous system and remind yourself that you have so much more power than you realize. And it's through your choice, the free will that you've been given, the power of choice. And if you're still listening to me, enough curiosity to begin that journey. And this right here, to be honest, is why I do the work that I do, because staying awake in your everyday life without support, without the space to explore it, without reflection, it's really hard. It's like fighting a fast, rapid current in a stream, and you're trying to go up the stream. But when you get a line of people holding on, it can be done. And that's why I've created a space where you can step away from that noise. You come back into yourself. We settle the nervous system. We take away the urgency. We take away the busyness. We sit in the white space of our day and we listen. We connect to nature. This is what our retreats are doing. This is what the retreat this summer will be doing, is leading you to your sovereignty. It's for the woman who knows there's more, who feels that pull, who is absolutely done. By golly, I'm done abandoning myself. And it's not about escaping anything, and it's more about returning to yourself so that you then have the support you need, the tools you need, the community that you need to be able to transform your life to even better than it already is. I mean, some of you might be sitting there like, I don't want it to change. It's so good. Well, what if it can be better than you ever imagined? What if there's still more for you to do here? This has been an amazing episode, you guys. Thank you for hanging with me. And I want to, something I want to leave you with today. And it's not something you have to go figure out, but it is something that I'd like for you to feel. Awakening isn't just this once in a lifetime moment. It's not even a one-time moment. Awakening, is like a relationship that's forming. You're awakening to the relationship with yourself, where you begin to notice where you're drifting, when you override, when you're about to abandon what you know is true for you. And instead of judging yourself, you just gently learn to return. That's what it means to stay awake. Not that you never fall back into old patterns, but that you don't stay there if you do. That you catch yourself sooner and sooner each time, and you get back faster. And that you choose yourself again and again and again. Because sovereignty isn't found in one big perfect decision, even one big perfect choice. It's built in quiet moments where no one is watching, where you could go back, but you don't. So wherever this is landing for you today, just ask yourself, where am I being invited to stay with myself instead of leaving to please others, leaving to avoid hearing a truth that I'm not ready to face? And what would it feel like if just this once I trusted that I could face it, that I could stop and listen? Let's take a deep breath together. Just release. Sit in this stillness with me just for a few more seconds. So many people are uncomfortable here. Resist the urge to turn the podcast off and start cooking dinner or whatever it is there is for you to do. Just sit for me, for you. Sit in the stillness. Who do you hear? What do you hear? What's your nervous system doing here? Focus on your breath. Know that you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be willing to not abandon what you now know because you made it through my entire podcast. Oh, guys, such a rich conversation for me with myself. I'm going to journal. I'm going to close this out and open my journal because so many new insights just flooded in that little moment of stillness for me. I hope they did for you. I hope you will process that. I hope that you will consider saying yes to the invitation to join us this summer, August 1st through 6th in Costa Rica, for a beautiful retreat. It's awakening the heart. And so it will be an awakening, and it'll be the most beautiful awakening. I hope you'll join us. And if I can help you on your spiritual path, and that retreat is something you'll look out over the horizon and maybe consider, but you want to get started sooner, then just reach out to me. And when I have openings You'll be one of the first to get on my calendar. Have a wonderful day. I'm sending you so much love. I hope you feel that. And I hope you live your truth. Take care.